How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Legion's Lounge. I'm your host, Matt, joined by CEO of Future Lore Studios and creator of Legion's Realms at War, Taylor. How's it going tonight?
It's going good, man. Like I said, it's good to be back in the routine, good to be back in the jive of things. We had an excellent podcast last week, and we got another excellent lined up for you this week. And what I mean by that is we have a very special guest with us. Typically, we interview players, collectors, people and members of the community, but we have a very unique member of the community this podcast episode for you, and that is Julian. Now, Julian, a lot of people don't know him by name, but he is the mastermind behind the newest software and newest tool to the Legion's universe, and that is the Legion's Toolbox. How's it going, Julian?
Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. It's going great. I'm very, very happy to be here and talk about what we have going on, what we have coming up. And yeah, very, very excited to be here.
Very good.
Well, it's great to have you.
No, it's great to have you. So, let's just jump right into it. So, how did you find out about Legion's Realms at War?
So I found out originally on Reddit, and this is a lesson for everyone who's trying to get a community going. Be persistent, because I saw a post on Reddit about, hey, there's a new card game being made here in Canada and you can try it here in Kingston. And the first time I saw it, it sparked my attention. Then I saw it again next week, and I thought, okay, this is actually a thing. It continues to happen. But that time I intended to go, but I saw the post too late. I noted that this was happening on Wednesday, and on the third Wednesday, I actually showed up. It turned out that post on Reddit was by Cody from Booster House, and now I am recording this in his studio. So it's been a wild 2.5 months since then, probably. But that's how I found out about it. I originally heard about it on Reddit. I was extremely interested in the fact that it was being developed here in Ontario, and I wanted to support a local game. So that's what sparked my interest and what got me to go there in the first place. And then I got hooked, obviously.
Very nice. No, I think it's a great way to start, right? It's community always starts somewhere, and I think it's essential that you have one person that just kind of keeps pushing for it, regardless of how many tries it takes or however many.
Absolutely.
No, exactly.
I think that's really important to note, right? Like we had Cody on on last week's podcast, and and rightfully so, we followed up here with Julian. Julian got introduced to it because of Cody, and that just it shows the amount of work that not only we continue to put out as a company, the work that we put in, but the sheer amount of work and effort and enthusiasm our Legion's fans and community members do, and just how much they hustle and how much they want the community to grow and want the game to succeed, and so much so that Julian then took it upon himself with the expertise that he had long before I even met him, or long before I even knew that he was attempting to do something like this. He took it upon himself with his knowledge and his expertise to be able to bring Legions to another level without even me knowing that he was doing that, which is excellent. And then later on, we touched base about it. Cody got us in contact with him, and we've been working with him ever since. And it's been a great asset to the community. It's been a great asset to us here at Future Lore Studios, and we could not have asked for a more spectacular individual and someone who has been putting the work in when we never even asked for the work to be put in. So I can't give people like Cody and Julian enough credit for how much they benefit and help the community out, to help continue to push our game to another level.
Well, and it's just
Well,
like talking about how it's
sorry,
just like
yeah.
no, sorry. You can go ahead.
Sorry, the greatest compliment to me is to hear that you guys use it at the studio, and to hear that you go on the search and you go and filter and you look at the cards. That to me is the best compliment. I never thought that that would ever happen. So it's super exciting to see how it's growing, and I'm sure at the same time, when Cody posted that on Reddit, time after time, he didn't imagine that that was going to end up in this platform being built that he can also use for his personal life and his business. So it's one of those things like community is built like that. One thing triggers another thing, and that triggers another thing. And when you want to realize what's going on, you have a huge community and a very passionate community like we're starting to have. It's so exciting.
Right, it really
Yeah,
just
and that's
shows how the like how a spark can start a forest fire, right? It like this, it started out as a small little Reddit post, and now we have an entire platform being designed that's fantastic that I use basically every day. Like it just shows how like there's such a great domino effect, and you really just have to push for that like wherever you go.
Oh, I think I've said it before, Matt, and I think you've heard it before on the
Hmm.
podcast. Like, just like a child, right? It needs nurturing, but it also is like it takes a village to raise a family, right?
It does.
And I think like each community member, each thing that they push through, it's brick by brick that we build this thing, right? And it takes a lot of things. I've had extensive conversations with Julian both in person and online since meeting him and since we started this journey. That it's a position where you got to love it because it doesn't love you back,
Hmm.
and but you see but you get rewarded by seeing the growth from the work that you put in, and each member along the chain, from top to bottom, uh, has to work together in unison without even knowing they're doing it. And that's how like an ecosystem is built, and how like that brick by brick continues to go, right? Like ultimately, like I've talked to Julian about it, like if we as a company don't produce a good game or a good product, or we miss the mark on something, that ripples down through the community, right? And
It
it
does.
ripples down into Julian's work, making it harder for him to continue to update the site and make the toolbox is what it is. And it ripples all the way down to the end consumer, the player, the collector, right? So if everyone hits their mark and everyone takes it in stride, it's a big endeavor. But if everyone does their part and puts that brick in next one after another, it creates something that is only built to grow and succeed.
No,
I agree, and
exactly.
you make a very important point, Taylor, when you do that sort of analogy. That is like you release this thing into the world, and you never imagine how people are going to use it. And I know, and I imagine that's what happened to you with the game itself. Once you release it out there, you see people doing things with it that you never would have imagined. And to a lesser degree, obviously, because we're a community that is growing, uh, like on par with your community and with the games community itself. We are starting to see, like, I'm starting to see how people are using the website and the toolbox in ways that I would have never imagined, because people are finding all kinds of like tricky ways to use it, and that's fantastic. And I imagine that at scale, that it's sort of like what happens, and what happened with you in the game, and it's fundamental part of the way of how you grow a community, and how you start interacting with that community. I think it's absolutely great. It's such a cool phenomenon to watch happen in real time.
No,
Yeah,
it
it
very
really
much
is. It
is.
really is an ecosystem, right? And it's almost like an environment that thrives off of one another, right? And like you said, without even knowing that it's going to happen or any way you anticipated, but it completely grows. I last Wednesday I was at one of our local game stores, Atlas, in Waterloo, and we were discussing some cards and some interactions with cards and stuff like that, and Hunter, a longtime member of our community and one of our judges, also was joined us on the podcast a while back. He immediately is like, "Wait, does that card function like that? Wait, hang on a second." And instead of going to the Legion's website to dig through the card guide to try and find it, he's got a bookmark in his phone, pulls up the Legion's toolbox, types in the card, it comes up right away, right? And like that's what the community has been needing for our first year,
Oh
a
my
year and a
goodness,
half,
yeah.
right? It's now such an amazing tool, and it makes things so much easier for the player, the collector, and when we were talking about ruling questions or talking about card interactions or card combos, or if someone's like, hey, I don't really remember what that card is, what are you talking about? And instead of trying to dig through a bulk box to find it, or flip through a binder, or dig through our website, it's right there at your fingertips. And like that kind of convenience in a world that demands convenience, um, could could not have just come at a better time for us.
Oh, 100%. And so I think it's probably good if we give the listeners a little bit of context if they don't know what the toolbox is. So, Julian,
100%. And
may
we're
you
going to turn that
take it
over to
away?
Julian to explain that.
Thank you. So yeah, the Legion's toolbox is supposed to eventually be your one-stop shop for everything you need to build your deck, to share your collection, to build wish lists, and we're going to talk about those things. First of all, it started as a passion project. As a new player, I found myself I don't have a lot of time. I run a company full time all day, and when I got into the game and I faced the reality that I have to learn a lot about these cards to know what's my next deck gonna be. Like how can I come up with combos? It was going to take me so long to go through all the cards and make sense of it because it was so new to me that the first thing I thought, because I'm a web guy, was I'm going to go to the internet and I'm going to look up a tool that will let me, do the sorting and do the searching for me. And I found out that there wasn't one. So I figured, okay, at my rate of the free time that I have, it's going to take me months to go through all these cards and figure out what they all do in conjunction with each other. And it might take me a couple of weeks to build a tool that will let me search cards. So I said, okay, time for time. I'm going to start building the toolbox. And then the added benefit of that is that maybe every other new player that comes after me that find themselves in the same position will be able to just look up the cards that they need or they think they might need and can look for keywords and things like that, and based on that can decide what deck they want to build. And I think the main objective of the platform is lowering the bar of entry for new players, because the professionals, all the players that have been in this for a while, that have played tournaments, that have been in this since the beginning, they don't really necessarily have a need for this tool at this moment, and we're going to get into how it's going to become useful to them in the future. But mostly right now, this is to bring new players in and lower the barrier of entry for them, so they can do their searching, they can do their virtual deck building if they want, without having to heavily invest from the beginning and get super involved. So that was my starting point. What you can do right now at legionstoolbox.com is you can search the name, text, code of any card, and that includes the keyword. So if you are looking for a specific card, you can just start typing the name and it will filter down to that card. If you are looking for, I don't know, all cards with a certain keyword like decay, then you can search for decay and it will show you, it will filter down to all the cards that have that keyword. You can filter most cards by Legion, rarity, release, and coming up very soon, card type. And that's very, very important. I can't
That
wait for
is.
that because I need it badly. Um, you can create an account to add cards to your collection, and you can share your collection with others. So you get a unique link for your collection, and you can opt to share that with others or not. If you don't share it with anybody, nobody will have a link to your collection, and you can keep it private, or you can share it with others. Um, One of the things that I found out was that a lot of people don't want to deal with the fact of manually adding their entire collection um, to a website, and that was I thought of that because I was a new player, and I was like, okay, I don't have that many cards. Now I have many cards, and it sounds kind of crazy to upload them all. So people have been cleverly using, and this is one of those things that I mean when people find uses for your platforms or for the things that you create that you were not expecting. People have been using it as a wish list. So they add the cards that they're looking for, and then they share a link to their collection, which is actually their wish list.
Hmm.
So that is what you can currently do with the platform and how it actually came into being.
Very nice. And so you said that you have some great plans for it, and I'm very excited to see it. And it came at the right time, right? It came just was it just after or just before Empire's release? Probably just after.
It was just before actually.
Okay.
He had
Yeah.
the beta version up and running just before Empires, and we worked really hard here in studio to make sure that Julian got all the files necessary. Because like I know Julian. I don't think he mentioned it here already, but like I said, he started this before we even knew about him or before we even knew about the Legion's Toolbox. He started all of this ahead of time. Then talk to us about it. And for sure, we gave him permission to use our stuff and keep going because it's definitely everything that the community has needed up to this point. So working with him on this is incredible. And now we worked really hard here in studio to make sure that Julian got all the cards that he needed, all the visual representation, but also all of the important things for his computer algorithms to go through and pick out those individual keywords in those searches that he was just talking about. I can't describe to you all the details that he went through because he's the mastermind and he's the magician behind it all. So we'll let the crazy Wizard of Oz continue to talk about how he's able to put all these working pieces together.
So basically, as you said, I would have never been able to do this without you guys, because the contribution that Future Lore Studios had to this platform is invaluable. It would not be 10% of what it is if it hadn't been for their help. But basically, because the initial task, and first of all, like, yes, it's an important point that Taylor makes. I started working on this before anyone at Future Lore Studios knew that I was going to do this. I got home on the first night after my first time at the Legion, uh, and I got home with like a bunch of battle decks, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna open these and I'm gonna see what I can do with them. And then immediately I noticed that there wasn't a searchable platform that I could use. And then I put the cards down and I started working on it. Um, I started off by taking the information from the official website from Legion's realms at war.ca. And from there, I was able to collect most of the card art, and then I wrote a little algorithm that would read the card art and from there try to deduce what the type of the card was, what was the card code, and what was the actual text of the card. Um, that I had mixed results with that. It turned out into a very buggy database. Um, so I reached out to Cody, who had originally introduced me to the game, and I said, "Hey, I'm planning on building this. Which way do you think I should go?" And Cody generously got me in contact with Future Lore Studios, and they were absolutely thrilled to hear that this was happening, and so that's when we started working together. And the first thing that made a huge difference was getting an actual spreadsheet with certain information about the cards. And this at the time, this was like a month before the launch of EOR,
Mhm.
and all EOR cards were in that list. So that was huge for me. That was information that had been published in several places, and it was not like it was secret information, but it was spread out, and having it all on one spreadsheet made a huge difference. And then we started working on, and Paul at Future Lore Studios did an amazing job at this. And this, I can't believe that he got this entire thing done in the 2 weeks previous to the launch of a new set, because that is just like, it would be crazy to get it done in 2 weeks nevertheless. But the fact that it happened like exactly the 2 weeks before a set launch makes it absolutely ridiculous. So I respect this guy a lot. um, they were able to send us a copy of each card without the background, because our computer algorithm was having trouble reading the actual content of each card. First of all, because it's pretty tiny, and second of all, because it sits on a gradient on most card editions. And the computer, the actual algorithm kept confusing the background with the text. So we didn't have a reliable way to actually extract that card text and make it searchable. I think one of the biggest updates to the platform since launch was making the entire card content searchable. The fact that you can search for all the keywords and the exact content of the card. And that wouldn't have happened if Paul hadn't sat down for 2 weeks and removed the background of every card to send it to me. So I'll will be forever grateful for that. That was absolutely amazing. At this point, we have done about 4 or 5 massive imports of information into the platform, and these have increasingly added more information to each card. So we are at the point right now that we have sort of exhausted our options when it comes to massive importing, and we're looking for volunteers to manually tag the rest of the information. So if this sounds like something that you're willing to undertake, I urge you to use the contact form on the website at legionstoolbox.com to contact me and get that sorted out.
That sounds great. I think I would like to add that I would like to help. I think we've talked about it before, and then I just kind of forgot to make an account.
Yeah, you're kind of busy, it sounds like. But
Yeah,
I mean, we'd be thrilled to have you on board.
I am very down to be on board. I like working and all like on all those kind of little fun projects. I enjoy it. I find that it's just something to do in your spare time. You know, you got a little. That's what I did with the when I made that spreadsheet. Well, when Hunter and I
Yeah,
made that spreadsheet
exactly.
in
And you're
July.
going to be very excited about a feature that we're going to talk about. But yeah, this is something that I do outside of work. This is definitely a passion project.
Yeah, and
We're not
it's
making a penny out of this. This is definitely something to give back to a community that has given me a lot in very little time. Um,
exactly.
so it's out there for people to use it. Again, the main objective of this is lowering the bar for new players to be able to like soak in the game quickly
Hmm.
and be able to explore. And so most people who start playing, and we're talking in many cases kids, they get one battle deck, and then they have to wonder about what else is out there, right? And it's unlikely that they will go and interact with like a completely uninteractive list of cards. So this is basically a way to, at this point, and we're I'm sure we're going to talk about future features later, but at this point, it was like, this is what I wish that was there when I was a new player, so I could look at all the cards and I could see what I liked, because maybe it turns out that the battle deck that I got is not the battle deck that I would have liked most. um, so it's something like that. That's basically what brought this project to life. It was that spirit.
And in that spirit, I think is a very good point that you, or a couple points that you made there. I think that we're talking about one. For anyone listening, please, if you're interested in helping us continue to build brick by brick, um, and jump in and making it. First off, just make an account on the Legion's Toolbox. It's free to make an account, is it not, Julian?
Absolutely, and it will remain free forever.
Awesome. See, so it's free to make an account. Jump in. You don't even have to interact with it necessarily, but you can always then reach out to Julian through the contact page, and be able to jump in. And if it's something that interests you, something that you want to add to a resume, perhaps something you want to work on, or just you're an avid member of the community that really wants to do more, um, that is a great avenue to reach out to him by. And I think that I think preludes and goes into this other thing I was going to talk about here, is the fact that that is the involvement, that is the growth, and ultimately the lower barrier of entry. It's been talked about in the industry. I follow a lot of people, listen to a lot of podcasts, listen to a lot of seminars. I literally breathe everything to do with the TCG space as much as I possibly can. Follow the pulse on every other game that I can get my hands on, or any information I can read. On top of working a full-time job and being the CEO of the company. It's a lot, but you got to love it, right? And you got to put the work in. And when some of these things that I hear of often in the space is talking about a barrier of entry, but talking about the front door and the back door or product.
Mhm.
And I can go into a little bit more here. What I talk about that is that your front door is your welcome, right? It's like a welcome mat. It's your front door into your community, into your game, and you want that front door to be as big and as wide open as possible. You want product to be easy to get. You want product to be able to be shipped to you very quickly, which is what we do. Um,
You
you
want to have
want
oh,
uh, you want to have easy access to a community, which is what we have right on our homepage of our website. Access to the Discord community with all of the current players, collectors, everyone, including myself, in there. Judges to talk to about rulings, about cards, deck tech help, and all in their server there. Easy, accessible. You want to have access to easy database searches and everything, and that's where Julian comes in with his Legion's Toolbox, also accessible through our website as well. But you want to make sure that that entrance point, that doorway, that front door to your game is as wide and as big as possible, and you want to minimize the back door. You want to make sure that there isn't really a big exit point, because obviously you want to grow, right? So you want anyone that comes in the door, you want them to stick around and enjoy the party, right? So how do you make that doorway as big as possible? And that's where I talk about it comes from the top down. And we at Future Love Studios work really hard to not only give you early great starting product like the 2-player battle decks that Julian's referring to, that we still have in stock. They were printed a limited quantity, but we still have some in stock. We make sure that we keep it, to as an easy entry point, a cheap barrier of entry, very affordable, gives you 2 decks and 2 of our now almost 2-year out of print Ravaged Lands booster packs inside, so that they always maintain their collectability, and excellent shelf life. But that's an easy entry point with 2 decks for people to learn with a friend, with a spouse, with a significant other, with a family member. And so that's trying to keep the barrier of entry low. We just introduced Empires on the Rise as our newest product. It's only, at this point, if you're listening to the podcast, it's only about a week and a half old. And Empires on the Rise is the first Legion set ever to include all of the mandatory game pieces that you would normally have been able to get through booster products and or the starter decks. You now can get it all in one box. Your Warlord, your Guardians, your Synergies, your Veil Realms, and all 16 warlords appear in this set, and you'll, as well as 16 synergies appear in this set. These are all viable and important integral game pieces to play the game Legion's Realms at War, and it's all going to be found in one product as well. So once again, it's our way of continuing to make that barrier of entry as low as possible and the door as wide as possible to welcome in more and more community members and new players. And that is exactly the premise that Julian is working his butt off for this for the Legion's Toolbox, to now not only when a player buys a battle deck like you mentioned, But if they wanted to start with a great starting block that is Empires on the Rise, you open a booster box of 270 cards, and now what do you do with them, right? Well, how do we build a deck? How do we go about doing that? What cards work with each other? And that's where it all circles back around to this great community that we've built, not only in access to deck building help through our Discord server, but also more importantly to the Legion's Toolbox to be able to search it up if I want to build a dwarf deck, if I want to build a demon deck. Well, I can filter all those cards. I can filter through them all, find what I need, find what works. Maybe I want to build it with around this keyword or around this character. All of that is now searchable, accessible, all at your fingertips. And that's all
Exactly.
courtesy to the hard work that Julian has put in.
And something I want to add is it's something that's also really great is there's a search bar at the top. You can search something very important, like you can search an archetype, right? Let's say I'm trying to build Alehouse or Putrid. I can type Putrid or Alehouse in that top search bar. It'll give me every single card that has that name. So it'll lower your search, like what you need to look through, by a fair amount, but it'll also give you cards that will have synergies with each other in that sense, right? It'll give you like, because obviously all the Putrid cards are going to work with Putrid cards. So it's going to give you that good flow, and it's going to help make the process easier, as well as figuring out which cards you need to use and which ones you don't.
And that's very important, Matt, that you stress that too, because now with Empire's release, we're pushing now up to 1,000 cards in the Legion card pool in less than 2 years since
Oh,
launch.
exactly.
So having that many cards is excellent for building strategy, variance. It's excellent for a thriving community that wants a big card pool to draw from to make decks, but it can be daunting for a new player coming into a large card pool and trying to filter all through that. And that's once again where Julian has hit the nail right on the head there, and has done an excellent amount of work to make sure those new players feel as welcome as possible and not overwhelmed in any way.
Exactly. And I think something that's very also good is now I say like that you want to search for the main keyword, but that doesn't mean that your deck has to stay entirely as that keyword, of course. Right? A lot of decks will have a couple cards that go outside of that keyword. An example for this could be Alehouse. There's a card called Mountain Distillery that isn't an Alehouse card, but it fits very well in the deck and something that should be run, personally at least. But it's there. Sometimes you have to think: is this archetype? No. Why not?
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point there too, Matt. And I think that swooping in there and saying that it's another thing that's a barrier for entry for new players is deck building. Deck building can be a daunting task, and having a toolbox platform to allow you to find those cards and work out what could be the next best process in starting my deck building process, I think that's excellent. But I think we're going to turn this over to Julian now, because I believe a future update coming could very well be a process to helping build decks. Am I correct with that?
What a perfect setup. Yes, very much indeed. And this is one of the things that I'm most excited about. And we're going to start talking about stuff that is currently in the pipeline. And this is stuff that I'm already actively working on. And the first one that I think is going to make most people excited is deck building. So right now you can add cards to your collection, but you can't create decks. And I think one of the most important features here is going to be the ability to build decks. So you're going to be able to create multiple decks, and you're going to be able to add cards, you're going to be able to add tokens, and you're going to be able to set cards as sideboard. So this is very important because the sideboard can make or break your game, especially at a tournament. So um, right out of the gate, our deck functionality is going to support your main deck. It's going to support tokens, and it's going to support a sideboard. You're going to be able to share your decks or keep them private. So if you're the private kind and you don't want to show anybody what you're working on, you don't have to. Decks can be set to private, and that will make them completely inaccessible to anyone, even if they have the URL for the deck, because that's a private deck. So one of the things that we're going to work on right after that is going to be able to export your deck list in the official tournament format. So if you have built your deck in the toolbox and you have a tournament coming up, you can just hit the export button and it's going to generate the actual document as is required on the official website for official tournaments. So that is huge. Obviously, the ruling on your deck is always going to be up to the judges ultimately, but this will give you a huge advantage in terms of speed of building your deck list. And once we have all information on all cards complete, and this is going to determine it's going to be determined largely by how many volunteers we can get to complete all the information and all the cards that we have on the database. We're going to be able to implement deck rules on all your decks. So basically, based on the rarity of the cards, it's going to tell you that you can have this many, and that is going to include warnings for cards that are in the SRL list. So not only based on the base rules of the game, but we will keep a close eye on the SRL list and uh, show you a warning when a card that you have in any of your decks or your collection is included there and what the limitations are. Now, what do you guys think about that?
That sounds amazing, and I I quite like that idea, right? You don't want to have someone having, you know, three three welcomes. That would not be all that fun. We used to live in a time like that. We have evolved as a society. I think, speaking of the suspended, restricted, limited list, though, do we know when that's going to be updated? I know Empires just came out, but I don't know like when it's coming out, when it's being updated next.
We have the officials update list always. Every time a new SRL list is updated, it says that when the list will be reviewed on next. So
Okay.
it's found right on the website under card eligibility and legality. So you'll be able to find that information right at the very top. It'll say when it was when the newest update was instated, and when the next review will be. So we're going to let Empires percolate a little bit for a while before we review anything. But as always, we want to make sure we're transparent with our entire community. So anything that is currently under looks or potentially could end up on the SRL list will always appear on the Legion's official watch list first. So that way we keep the community updated and knowledgeable about the cards that Featureless Studios is deeming that could potentially see a problem or could potentially see some sort of have an understanding that these cards could be an impact on the game in a potentially negative way. We are always watching those, is why we take tournament deck lists at every major event, so that we can collect that data, and on that way it's there ready, and it's always going to not just be visible for us, but it'll be visible for everybody else through the watch list so that they know that these cards are being monitored by Featureless Studios, and therefore because they're being monitored, they could potentially, doesn't mean always, could potentially end up on the SRL list in some form or another. But you will never find a card that appears on the SRL list that wasn't already priorly on the watch list. So that is our company's promise of transparency through that, and that Julian is taking it upon himself to make sure that the deck construction rules and legality of cards is always make sure that it's updated on the Legion's toolbox, making sure that your decks that you build and export for your competitive play are therefore legal and up to date, in correspondent with Featureless Studios SRL list. So I think that's huge. I think that's a great tool, and once again, another way to lower barrier of entry for new players who may have been excited, use the toolbox, built a deck, they want to go to their first event, but the toolbox is also telling them, hey, keep in mind, you can't have a couple of copies of these cards because maybe it's an exalted or a renown, and it's limited based on the game functionality and mechanics and rules of the game, or there are one or two cards in your deck that are on the SRL list. Maybe one of the cards is suspended, maybe one of them is restricted to one, maybe one of them is just limited to two, but at least it's there, it updates, it informs the new player and allows them to build a competent and legal deck, and gives them all the tools necessary to set them up for early welcoming and easy success in the event.
Absolutely. And I would like to add it would be amazing to eventually have, I know judges are few and far apart, but it would eventually be great to have a judge volunteer on the toolbox to be able to validate our deck building rules so that judges can make sure that our deck building rules are compliant with the actual tournament rules. So that I'm just throwing it out there. If any judges are listening, you want to hit me up, you know where the contact button is on the website. Um, but I think this takes us to the next feature that a lot of people have been asking for. And this is actually, in terms of proximity, probably the next feature that we're going to be launching probably as soon as this week. And that's the possibility to create a wish list. So that you can have, so for users who want to use their collection and they don't want to have to use their collection as a wish list, they will have the option to have a proper wish list. And again, you can share your wish list or you can keep it private. Usually your wish list is the kind of thing that you would like to share. Um, and one feature that we are very, very excited about to implement right after we launch that is, so you know how you can already uh, share your collection with other people, and we're hoping that this will entice people to actually upload their collection. Um, Now, if somebody sends you their collection and you're a logged in user who has a wish list, you will be able to compare their collection to your wish list. So it will tell you which cards match from your wish list to their collection, and then you can get trading, right? That's a feature that we are very, very, very excited about, and I'm sure people are going to use it a lot. That is going to entice a lot of the uh, mid-pro to full pro players to actually get on there. People who are building decks and need very specific cards. I think that's going to be a very, very useful feature.
I think it will not only be an excellent and useful feature, but I think it'll also be something that is used by our set collectors. And what I mean by that is we have a built-in, a baked-in collectability in Legion's Realms of War that we have at Future Studios have always been cognizant of and continue to build into every one of our products. Not only do we want the front door wide open and big as possible to welcome new players, but we also want to make sure that people that are player collectors can have the opportunity to collect cards and the cards retain their value as well as their playability. Maybe not just value in terms of playability, but value in terms of scarcity or monetary value to their collection. Ultimately, that's part of the reason why we play trading card games, is for their value inherently on the secondary market. Now, Future Studios has no control or bearing on the secondary market in any way outside of us producing the product itself and scarcity and through pull rates and rarity of cards or what have you. But when it comes to that, I think that that's where, capitalizing on what Julian said, are very skilled players that are going to use it to fill out what they need for their deck or their specific card they may be missing on their wish list, but also for our collectors in the community that want to use the wish list to um, be able to build up and figure out which cards exactly are they missing from their collection. Because for those of you who are just hearing this for the first time, we have already had a couple community members that have done what we call a master set collection, which is a play set of all playable cards from an individual Legion's Realms of War set. And from the company, from Future Lore Studios, we honor those individuals who spent the time, the money, and the effort to track down those individual cards in our small print runs to be able to find out where they all are, get a hold of them, and build them into their collection. They have offered us, Future Lore Studios, either video or picture evidence proof that they did the work and they got those cards, that we honor them with a master set collector card for each and every individual set. These are different. These are actually official Legion's Realms at War promo cards. They're full foiled, they are stamped, they are gorgeous, and they are non-playable cards. So you don't have to worry about being locked behind a paywall as a player. These are purely a collectible piece for in honor of our collectors, and you receive each one for the specific set that you set collect. Now, I know that since we announced those set collections cards in our Discord and on our website, that people in our community and players have been becoming more collectors, and we've gained more collectors because of that. And we're starting to see more and more master sets being collected to unlock and get those beautiful cards here from Future Lit Studios. So that's where we're circling it back around to Julian's wish list on the Legion's Toolbox. Is it's another useful tool for our collectors or our player collectors, the people that are very interested in getting those master set collection promos, um, that they can use the wish list to track down other people that may have the cards they're missing for their master set collections.
Absolutely, and that goes to prove my point from earlier that people will find creative uses for the tools that you build with one purpose in mind, and they will use them for other things, or they will use them in more creative ways than you were thinking, because this is a community. People play differently, people search differently, people are searching for different things, and they will find a way to use the available tools to fit their current needs. So that's an excellent point, and it can absolutely be used to that. Let's remember that all of these elements are completely filterable. So you can be looking at another player's collection, or your own collection, or your own deck, or your own wish list, and filter all of them by legion, or soon by type, or by rarity. So the array of options that this opens to different types of players and different types of collectors is actually up to each player's imagination and each player's creativity. And then that leaves the point of how do we get the hardcore players on board on the platform, because these are players that have been pretty much building their own databases. There are players out there who have very, very complex tracking mechanisms for their collections and their decks. Like, we're talking about very, very involved players. Um, so how do we get them on the platform? Besides the features that we have previously discussed, one of the things that we are going to implement that we are already working on, and it's like down the pipeline, is import export. So you will be able to upload, if you have a spreadsheet with the cards in your collection, your wish list, or your decks, or whatever, you will be able to upload an Excel file or any spreadsheet file and add those cards immediately, as long as you have a column with the unique card code and the amount that you want to work with, whether this is adding to a wish list or a deck or a collection. That is all that we need, and you will be able to import that file. And in 3 seconds, even if you have thousands of cards in it, it will be done. You will also be able to export your collections, wish lists, and decks. So that will, and this will, again, this is a free feature for everybody. Uh, so basically, that is how I think we're gonna get to like the hardcore audience of the game, when you can finally take all the work that you've been doing over all of this time in building your own database and organizing your stuff. Because I know the hardcore players are doing this, because there's no way that you become that competitive without having some sort of way to search and organize your cards. So that is what I think is going to bring the rest of the community. So we're lowering the bar for new players. We're offering an array of creative tools for the middle ground, and we're offering high power tools for hardcore players.
Hmm. It's amazing. Like the work that you've been doing is just exceptional. It's fantastic.
I can't stress as the CEO of this company enough how thankful we are to have someone like Julian on board doing this, and not only that, is just keeping the meticulous details in mind. I've had an extensive conversation in person with Julian, and I think he understands that we're on the same wavelength when it comes to the meticulous details. I put in the work to make sure that every card in a set matters, every card in a set counts. I put in the work to make sure that just because the card may be a common doesn't mean it's not really playable or very much needed in your deck. Just like Julian is doing, putting in that work to make sure that the Legion's toolbox appeals to all levels and all players and all collectors and community members of our growing community, just to make sure that every box is checked, right? Everything that a player or a collector would want, basically answering the questions before they're asked. And that's been a long time thing here at Future Love Studios, is we always try to answer the questions before they're asked. And I believe Julian is falling right in on that trailblazing viewpoint as well. And I couldn't be happier for it, because he sees our vision, we see his, and it's something that has an ultimate end goal that is the same. So it is great to have great minds think alike that way. And what I wanted to ask you, Julian, in particular, when you were talking about the wish list and the collection and trying to get those pieces, is there going to be a function down the road in the Legion's toolbox that, say I'm a collector, I'm missing a few cards in my collection, I have them on my wish list, I compare my wish list that is public to someone else's public collection, I see that they have the cards that I'm missing. Is there, outside of messaging them independently outside of the toolbox itself, is there a way to like select cards in their collection to notify them that those cards have been flagged, or those cards have been checked by an individual that's looking to make a trade or looking to make a sale or a purchase? Is there going to be a function similar to that?
Absolutely, yes. That is something, and obviously these features are going to be implemented incrementally. But absolutely, yes. And not only that, I would say that it wouldn't be far-fetched to say that some users will be able to make their location public, not in a way that people will be able to see their exact location, but they will be able to be included in searches by location. So if somebody is looking for a card, but they don't want it to be in Australia, for example, and they want to select, okay, find me users who have made their collections public and have made their general location available, who have the cards that I'm looking for. And then you will be able to use an internal messaging system to get in contact with those players. So yes, absolutely, that is definitely in the pipeline, and that's it gets kind of like in the kind of like dream things that we would like to do. But I mean, the entire pipeline that I just mentioned to you, we're talking about 6 months at most. So we're gonna have a lot of time after that to get creative with new features, and we would like to make this your one-stop shop for all your needs when it comes to anything you need to know about legions.
That's awesome. I'm assuming, obviously you will be in touch further to work with making sure that any rules they'll probably have an application process for the judge program on there as well. Just things that, as much as we can integrate into that Legion's platform, to make it, like you said, that one-stop shop. But convenience is ultimately what everyone needs in this world and in this day and age. And I think that having that convenience, everything at your fingertips, really makes the player and the community, even the new person coming in, makes it very easy for everyone. That everyone is like, literally, it's right there. It's accessible on your phone, just like anything else is. And it's going to be continually updated and have it continual offered feedback. I think that is
Absolutely.
imperative.
And when you talk about phone use, we're working on some improved features for phones. So when you're on a mobile device and you don't have any filters set, it just tries to load all the cards. Even though it doesn't load all the images, it could take a while to load. So we're going to add some functionality so that you actually have to start the filtering to display the cards, and that's going to be important for mobile users. The other thing that we are already working on is the apps, the Android and Apple iPhone app for the site. That is already in the works, and I don't know if I might end with a bombshell. I don't know if you guys are okay with that.
Of course, you say whatever you want to say.
Okay, so we're already in the research phase for what I think is my dream update.
Okay.
And my dream update is to allow the app to scan cards.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
And we are in the works for that. So basically, you would be able to scan a single card with your phone camera and decide what you want to do with it. Basically, if you want to add it to your wish list or you want to add it to your deck or whatever you want to do with it, or you would be even able to do bulk actions. So you would state that you want to add multiple cards to your collection. And you will click on start, and then you will scan your cards one by one. Just put them in front of your phone, and they will go beep, beep, beep. And when you're done, and you add as many cards to your collection or your wish list or your deck as you want.
It's like that. It's gonna sound really stupid that I'm making this comparison. It's like that. The Lego app where it's like you can like just scan like a whole pile of Lego and it'll highlight where certain pieces are.
Yeah,
That's
pretty much
awesome.
exactly. Yeah.
That's so cool.
So I mean, we are just in the research phase for that, and I say we because we're bringing people in for this. I have friends who have experience with this, um, but yeah, it's ideally like I don't see myself adding my entire collection as such to the toolbox until that feature is available.
Oh, 100%. Because then you could just lay it out, scan it all. Next.
Absolutely, and that's the idea. That's the end game. Um, Obviously there's all kinds of complications involved in that beyond the actual coding of the thing.
Oh, of course.
There's like server costs and all that kind of thing, and basically we depend for all of this to happen and for all of this to become a reality. We need everybody to invite all their friends to play the game.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Basically, the larger player base we have and the more interest we have, um, the faster and the more real this will become. We have players signing and logging and like creating new users into the toolbox every day, which presents other challenges that I will very basically get into right now. We have three copies of the website. We have the copy that's online, the copy that's ready to go online, and the copy that I'm working on. So these are all incremental copies because people are already using the website for real. They already have their collections on there, they have their wish lists on there, they have their information on there.
Yep.
I can't implement any disruptive changes to that. So
Mm,
I have to be very careful with with the changes that I implement and how they affect the functioning of the current website.
bro, it's
So
very
right
true,
now
yeah.
there are there's three versions of the website that I'm working on. Um, so as things get more complex, I'm not going to be able to roll out like an update a week like I was doing before. But at the same time, that means that the updates are getting more complex, and we're getting closer and closer to having uh, full working platform that has all the bells and whistles that this community deserves.
Exactly. It's the updates being spaced further apart is a good thing because it means it's getting better. It's not that there's not enough people. It's just that it's the I don't want to call it the starting piece, but similar, like kind of like the starting piece is done. Then it's now moving on to the actual
Yeah,
big meaty
we're
stuff, which was going to take a
we're
fair bit of time.
tackling the last details, and sometimes they're the most time consuming. Like
Oh,
for
yeah.
example, I'll give you a little like percentage there.
Yep.
If you filter, if you go on the platform right now, and I know this doesn't speak great of my platform, but this literally is why we need the community to jump on
Yeah.
and start collaborating. Right now, if you filter by Legion, only about 60% of the cards are tagged by Legion. So if you're filtering, if you're depending on filtering by orcs or undead or whatever, about 40% of the cards are not on that list.
Okay.
And that's because they're in the general database, but they are not tagged with the correct Legion.
Mm.
And that's the kind of work that we need players to go and do manually. Unfortunately, I wish we could have done it all with AI, but it's in its infancy.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can do, right? I mean, there's sometimes having a little bit of manual help's always good. I think it's a, I think it's great. It can bring the community together.
It builds character, man. Like
Oh,
hard work,
and it
hard work.
teaches
I've
you about
never.
it teaches you about the game a lot because you're reading all like you're again soaking yourself in the game. Like if you spend an hour working on the toolbox and tagging cards with the correct realms, you find yourself reading all these card descriptions that you hadn't read before, and you start thinking about deck ideas. It's not like it's sort of like sifting through your cards, really.
Oh yeah, like when I was doing my share of designing the spreadsheet of just writing everything down, like I would just write down all the effects and I'd be like, okay, like, and then after I came back, I was like, I know all of these cards so much better because they're just all ingrained in my head.
Absolutely, and I can absolutely relate to that in a much like minor level because I have to confess last night was the first time that I had time to sit down and build a deck from scratch.
Hmm.
And I use a toolbox a lot, but after like because of that repetition and because you have to read, okay, this you build the card list and then you find all the cards and then you find what's missing and what you have. By the time you're done 2 hours later, you've read all the cards, you know exactly how the deck works, you know exactly what you need, you can recognize any card that you need from a giant pile of them. So yeah, that's the way to go. And I think the platform is a way for people who don't have all the cards to be able to do that, and they can go on the toolbox and they can browse every single card and go like, okay, this is what I would like to build, and this is what I have, and these are the cards that I'm missing. So it kind of like, to me, it fits perfectly in the puzzle of like how you play, collect, and build decks for this game.
Oh, exactly.
It's once again another way that widens that front door, right? And I can't stress that enough, like how invaluable that is. And it is great to hear, Julian, that every day we have people signing up and joining the Legion's Toolbox. I know that, like I mentioned at the top of this podcast, we even use it here in studio now. That's how integral the piece has become. Um, it's when I'm going through, like, right now I'm in the midst of designing up the box and pack algorithm for Opus of the Magi, right? Which is our next set, right? I mean, I've for the month or 2 months that Empires was in print production. There's no rest for the wicked, right? I was already putting together and making sure Opus the Magi was assembled in the way that it needs to be, right? And that's our next set coming in Q2 of next year. So, um, you know, I I was making sure that, like, so I had our website gallery up for everything up to this date, but I also had the Legion's Toolbox if I needed to search for individual cards, because as I'm building set algorithms, I got to go, all right, well, I got to make sure that this card appears in this slot and this card functions with this card. And, it's now become a tool in my everyday development of future products, having an accessible search engine and database that's right there at my fingertips. Pull up a card that I need right away and be like, this card functions with this. This is what's going to go in the next product. And it's going to get this rarity, this pull ratio, everything like that. So like I have been working around the clock as I normally do on on our next product. I don't even get a chance to really soak in Empires all that much, but I get to work on the next one, and that's the joy of it. I like building things, obviously. So, but having the toolbox at my fingertips to do this has been an invaluable resource.
So
That
it's
is to me the highest form of compliment, to know that the creators of the game are using the tool that I built. um, is absolutely mind blowing to me. And what I'm looking forward to the most is seeing what the players do with it. Like once the majority of the player base and the collector base have gotten on it, and again, if you wish there was a feature there that you don't see, or you find a new great use for the platform, just take 2 minutes, go over to the contact form and let me know, because this informs the development of the toolbox, and it really helps a lot. And again, if you want to become a contributor and you want to uh, volunteer some of your time to completing the toolbox and making it 100% accurate, which is my objective, then please contact me on using the contact form, and I'll make sure that you have all the tools you need to improve the platform.
exactly. It's a community effort, and a little goes a long way here. I
So Matt,
think
do you have any questions for Julian in regards to it? I know you, like I said, you mentioned briefly here that you were part of the early setup to the spreadsheet. Basically, you did it out of necessity too, to help you understand cards and put decks together and stuff
exactly.
in your early couple weeks and months involved in the game. And now that you've been involved in the game for over an entire calendar year now, do you have any questions for Julian that he can answer or help you with, or that you can work together on?
I have a couple like ideas for it in mind. I think I've talked to Julian about it. Potentially, I think something that could really help, especially newer players get involved, is having like deck list templates available to see as like a point, like when deck building does become a thing, to have that as a way to like be where you can start. I feel that's definitely a
So you're talking about a
I
template
love
like
that.
a bare bones deck. So like you say that you go into heroes and like I want to build a deck that's focused around resistance. You check that, and the toolbox generates that base bare bones deck for you to read over the cards and build off of. Is that what you're talking about?
pretty much, yeah. So it'd be like there's a template, and you can be like, okay, let's say resistance template, and you'll click it, and then it'll make where you can build your deck. It'll make your list. It'll just copy that into your list, and then you can edit it as well. So that way you can start off of as like a base template. Because I know that's what I try to do for empires. I've been trying to give people base deck lists whenever they're asking for them in the deck building channels. That way I can help
Oh
them
yeah,
in
I
whichever way
think
they
I'm
need.
using one of yours.
Yeah, probably.
Um, that is a super fantastic feature. Actually, what I would do is I would include, since users would already have the ability to set their decks as public or private,
Yeah.
maybe they would have another option to like show on the deck list.
Yeah, like share their
And
decks. Yeah.
yeah, and there would be a deck list section, which would be pretty much all the publicly shared decks, and you would be able to start a deck based off of that. You would just have a one-click control to go like, okay, start a deck based on this, and you would just name the deck, and it would add all those cards to your deck, and then you can start taking cards out and replacing them. You would probably, since we're incorporating a compare feature, if you have your entire collection uploaded, you would be able to see, okay, I just imported a deck. How many of these cards do I have in my collection, and how many do I need?
Exactly.
So then it would be very easy for you to see, okay, I have, let's say this is a 55 card deck. I have 35, I need 20. Who's got these 20?
Exactly. And it'd
And
all be very
in my
fluent.
search area. So I mean, yes, that to me would be a dream tool to have. Again, these are things that could be incorporated in like incremental steps.
Hmm.
So I am writing things down. Like the public deck list would be something that could pretty much come out at the same time as deck building. Um, because when we implement the deck building, we can just throw that in there,
Exactly.
and just have a public deck list on the homepage where you can go and at least see the decks, and then we can incorporate to that the ability to add all those to one of your decks. So incrementally, all of these things would be done, and I feel like right now I have the best. Like if this were like a commercial product and we were doing focus groups, this like I feel like I'm sitting in front of the best focus group for this game that I could ever have. So if you have any other ideas or questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Well, I definitely think that Matt's onto something there with the bare bones the templates. I know Matt's been a huge supporter in the Legion's Discord server for any new players jumping in or people jumping into a new deck now, because Empires on the Rise gives you so many other opportunities to build decks with new cards and new warlords and new entire mechanics. So Matt, who's not even necessarily well versed in those decks, but he's skilled at deck building and putting ideas together. I think in that situation, he's been a great asset to the community of giving people bare bones to at least work with. So for people like Matt and others that feel as though that they can share, even if it's not maybe their competitive list, but building a soft template structure because for of a deck, because I know when new players coming in, that's always a daunting thing too. Like
Oh my goodness.
I see all these cards. I can filter them, which is great. I can add them to my collection, which is great. But like, where do I begin building something, right? And what is it going to be like? How can I build something that if one is going to function, two is a legal deck, and three that is going to have at least a level of competition that I can then practice at and take to my locals and play, and then maybe see where it needs to be tweaked or have others offer support or suggestions. So I think like having that bare bones, those templates is a great starting point because it's basically just creates a virtual starter deck for you, which is
Exactly.
excellent because now it's there. You have a digital version of what your starting competitive deck looks like, and then like Julian said, then you can add and subtract based on how you feel as a player, what you think the play lines are. And it's a trial and error because then you like, okay, this is the deck, like you said, it's a 55 card deck. I have 35 of them. Let's track down these other 20. Let's try it out. Oh, and then you go to your couple weeks and your weekly events and you play it and you're like, okay, I can see why they played this card instead of this card, or this doesn't fit right with what I'm trying to do. And then you go back to it and then you make tweaks. And I think it's it instills that community driven pay it forward mentality of being able to go, I had someone's deck, even if it's a bare bones, to help me get started. And then now I've fine tuned it. So I'm going to make this public. So now someone else that's new can jump in and use the thing that I fine tuned and they can make it their own in a way. And it's fostering continual growth and fostering continual help to bolster a new and brilliant, vibrant community to help fuel that ecosystem.
Exactly, right? Like I
Absolutely.
want to preface this for anyone using any of my deck lists. They are going to be very, very rough, right? I have looked at my future deck list and like now and be like, what was I thinking? Right? There are a couple things that I like about it, but there are a couple cards that I don't feel that fit as well. A couple cards I feel like I might have missed. But hey, I mean that's just the way it is, right? But like all of these, they're super rough, but it's always a starting point. And I think for a
Yeah,
lot of people, the hardest part in a deck is getting started.
absolutely. Like if I like when I sat down last night 3 hours to build a new deck based on a list off of the Discord server, by the way, if I had had a tool that would have allowed me to import that deck and then, for example, at the same time, search for other cards that share keywords with what I realize is the most important aspect of my deck, and then compare those to what I have. And then in 30 minutes instead of 3 hours, I would have had a deck built with the cards that I had that functions with a similar mechanic to the deck that I wanted to build or that somebody else posted as a baseline. And that would have been invaluable to me. Obviously, you learn a lot by doing the grind and reading the cards and all that stuff. But I mean, for me as a player who doesn't have a lot of time, because I run a company full time and I share my time, like my spare time is shared between several hobbies. Uh,
Exactly.
Being able to save a couple hours
Means
doing
everything.
something, it means everything. It means that now I'm more into this hobby than maybe others or than I was before because it's making things easy for me,
And some
and that
people
goes a long way.
like, and it's also very different types of people, right? Because some people will gain a lot from their experience in, like, some people will gain a lot in looking through the cards and building their own deck, but some people will just, like, they can't do with seeing it. They have to have it physically in their hand, right? Which is where this also
Absolutely.
helps.
Absolutely. So the idea is to be able to accommodate as many players and collectors as possible so that it's easier for them to get into this wonderful hobby that that I wish I had discovered earlier.
Then
Well,
I
I
wish.
think you make a really good point there, Julian, too, is that once again, going back to talking about keeping that front door and that barrier of entry um, wide open and low for new players and people to come in, and new community members, new collectors, what have you. And I think that's huge for, like you said, saving time, because ultimately all of us live busy lives, whether we work one job or two, or we have other hobbies like you mentioned, right? Or other responsibilities, a household, a family, children, a pet, right? Like there's a lot of moving pieces in our lives, right? And we ultimately we want out of what we want out of our hobby is enjoyment. That's why it is a hobby. And so um, what's going to bring you the most enjoyment is being able to do the things that the hobby intended you to do as part of it. So when you can eliminate the work out of it, because we already work so much in our lives, if you can eliminate the work out of the hobby becomes more fun, which is what it was intended for. So when a lot of the work has been done for you, or a lot of the work is no longer there, the hobby not only becomes more enjoyable, but now you can either A, spend more time that you would have been working on the hobby, enjoying the hobby instead, or B, if like yourself, if you're in a position where you can only allot so much time, you can then still get your fix of your hobby in a shorter amount of time, while still being able to do the other things that are required of you out of your regular everyday life.
Exactly. And it's right, it's the exact same with like D&D, right? Some people love the idea of building up a character and really getting immersed in that character. Some people just want to play the game. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I know because D&D takes all my Fridays.
Yeah. No, but like, some
So
people
yeah,
just want to play
it's
the game. Some people,
Wednesdays it's Legions and Fridays it's D&D.
exactly, no. Some people want to just play the game. Some people want to live their character. And that's just, you have to respect both ways.
Absolutely. What a fun time.
What a fun time.
So now we've talked extensively about, specifically about the toolbox. Now, Julian, I want to ask you some things. Like, we just had a new set come out a week and a half ago. How do you
Oh
feel
yeah.
about it? What do you think? How was the box opening experience, the pack opening experience, being involved in your first Legions release? How did that whole thing go?
Oh man, I still have dreams of opening more packs. Uh, it was extremely fun for me. First of all, I think I got lucky. I think I got some very lucky pools. It allowed me to look into like, okay, let's see what powerful cards I have and see what I can build off of that. And it actually it ended up with me finally sitting down and building a deck. So in terms of doing what it's supposed to do, it definitely did it. I'm very excited about some of the gameplay that is allowed by some of these new cards. For me, it was very exciting to live and breathe the first launch. Um, it was fantastic. Like for me, it was everything you can expect and more. Like I played other card games on and off for like 25 years, but I had never been as excited about launch as this time.
Exactly. It's
Well, I heard Cody himself running the event. I mean, you guys have built an excellent playing community and community there at the Legion in Kingston. And I heard from Cody that in the first half an hour he sold out of all of his Empire's product, and
Oh yeah.
he had wished he ordered more, right? So
Oh yeah, I'm not surprised. The community that has built up here in Kingston is absolutely amazing. Like I'm gonna take a moment to like give a shout out to all the Kingston community because it's amazing. I've only been playing this game for a couple months, and I've made friends. I've met amazing people, and to me, like I can no longer imagine my Wednesdays without like Legions at the Legion. It's absolutely fantastic.
well, and that's great to hear. It's like that kind of feedback is the reason why we put in the blood, sweat, and tears, right? And like you mentioned earlier about all the work that was done specifically by Paul here in Future Lore Studios in those 2 weeks leading up to release. Like to kind of put that into a frame perspective, we were on the phone every day with the manufacturers, working out release time, working out times for shipments. We're working with the card graders to get cards in to offer that we made sure that we fulfilled the part in the Kickstarter with the slabbed Elysian cards. So we're talking with them. I'm in the process of trying to make sure algorithms are coming out proper. We have boxes of promo cards that are showing up that I'm having to go through one by one to make sure that they're all put into the right Kickstarter packages. We have playmats showing up at the studio, and we're making sure the playmats are accounted for in the right packages. For those that know, we had 85 backers. Yes, it's not near as much as some of these other ones that are up in the thousands of backers, but for a small little studio like us out of Canada, 85 was right at that point where it's like, okay, this is a lot of work. This is 12, 13 hours a day, plus I work a full time job on top of that. So I was working into the hours of the night. Paul was busting his butt for 2 solid weeks, and so not only we're trying to package and get everything ready for shipping and working with UPS for international or for American shipping, and working with Canada Post for Canadian shipping, and working with DHL for international shipping. But then we're on the horn with the printers, and then we're talking with the card grading services and working with the company that manufactures the playmats, and we're trying to get all the working pieces going together, and then trying to make room in the studio because we know we have a shipment coming, and trying to make sure that that's all in place for when the shipment arrives, and then get on the horn with the proper advertising, and then keeping up with social media and making sure that we have the everything published out to everyone, the updates for the Kickstarter, and with tracking information showing up soon, and making all these working parts going, both while we were working full-time jobs on top of this, and then he still found the time in those 2 weeks to go through each and every card, and we're talking including promo cards, it puts us well over 1,000 cards, and for him to go through each and every single one to make sure that he had all the files sent to you before release. So
It absolutely blows my mind. Like
it's
I'm short for words for what Paul did at the time that he did it, and that it played into the biggest update that we've made into the platform, and I think what actually lowers the barrier the most, which is being able to search for keywords and being able to search the content of cards. That is such a vital thing that, I mean, I Paul, if you're watching, I take my hat off to you, man. Like what a hero.
he does such amazing work, and I don't think he's recognized nearly enough for all the fantastic stuff he does for Future Lore Studios and Legions at War.
Well, I
He's
mean, we wouldn't have the cards look as beautiful as they do, and we wouldn't have the all of the graphics that you see on the booster wraps and the graphics that you see on our booster boxes. Empire's booster box looks phenomenal,
it
and the
does.
packs look phenomenal, and he did all of it, right? So, um, and the signage that you see, the advertisements, all the social media posts, all of our graphics, all of our logos, although each logo design, like Empires on the Rise was like a 22 hours that he put in just to make the logo for Empires on the Rise.
Jeez.
Um, so that's what I mean. Like these kind of things, the logos for the Rally of the Realms, the logos for the Siege series, you know, the the card updates to every single card that we put into Empires. We had a lot of massive updates. The fractured foils that everyone loved so much and how beautiful they look. Those fractured pieces of the broken glass on the card, he did by hand, all four of them, and then had to recreate them as a mask for the printers to do a mask foiling.
Oh
And he
Amazing.
wow.
he did all that. I designed the cards and did the game text and made sure it was balanced, but the visual aspect of it is it's him.
Jeez. That's just
What
insane.
a guy. I mean, invaluable.
And like
Absolutely amazing.
we have a very small team here at Future Love Studios, and a lot of times it's 90% of it's just done by Paul and myself. So it's a lot of work for two people. We wear a lot of hats. We have some great other people that help us, both in the testing team, and we have a certified corporate accountant that helps us as well. That does a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes, dealing with finances and insurance and all of the business aspect of things. But there's a tremendous amount of work, and here we are on the precipice of, well, when this podcast airs, we will be just a couple days over a week before we're in Indianapolis for Gen Con, and the largest gaming convention in the world. And the backdrop and the display that everyone is going to be able to get a chance to see, we're going to publish video logs on our official YouTube channel. But we have a 20-foot wide by 14 feet tall, three-dimensional Legion's character cutouts. There's like 9 or 10 character cutouts, and everything's three-dimensional and pops out. And like I said, it's 20 feet wide by 14 feet tall. And
Jeez.
he designed and built all of it.
Wow.
And that's going to be on full display in Indianapolis at Gen Con for 4 days. And then, of course, he's coming down with us. He's driving our big shipping vehicle down with all of us in it. And he arranged all of the logistics, the hotel bookings, the booth bookings, the extra badge bookings, everything to do with Gen Con. He arranged all of that, all while still doing everything else here too, right? So when it comes to the design and the creation of the game and the testing and the balancing and everything and the artwork, that all comes from me. But all the logistics sides, everything to do with the business, anything of the creative logo designs, everything, that all comes from him. So it is 100% a team effort, and it's something that if either one of us weren't in the picture, it wouldn't be what it is. So um, there's some days it gets a lot, and it's stressful. Not gonna lie, these 2 weeks after release were probably some of the stressful days of my life. Um, but just like a duck on the water, you see it calm and cool, and underneath the legs are moving as fast as possible.
That's a good
What a
analogy. I
legend.
like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, we're definitely lucky as a community that we have you guys working behind this thing because I mean, I'm pretty sure if everybody in the community shares my trust in you guys, I think we're in very, very good hands.
No, I
Well,
fully
I
agree.
think you have given us an extra breath of life, something that gave us an extra boost, a boon to the community. sometimes we're busting our butts to give everyone the best that we can offer. And some of those things, like a working functional database and a one-stop shop for all Legion's tools and everything to do about the game, having that done outside of our company, and having someone like yourself who is so skilled and knowledgeable, the ability to do that, is absolutely invaluable. And I don't know if the community thanks you enough for it. They definitely should, but we do as a company. We think that you and your platform, Legion's Toolbox, Julian, is something that is going to allow the game to evolve to another level. And having it free for people to use is absolutely incredible. I don't know, nor nor do I ask about the cost and the time that it takes to do that, because trust me, I know running a business how much effort and finances take to do that. So to be able to have that tool, that you're doing it as a passion project and a love for the game, speaks volumes. It definitely does not go unnoticed from us, for sure. um, and allowing us to have that great working relationship to continue to build this game forward and onwards and upwards, like we like to say in our studio. We have some crazy and awesome stuff we have in the works here at Future Love Studios, that we're working on the business side of things, to hopefully give it launch into what would be, I guess, year 3 coming up. For Legions, it's going to be our biggest and best year yet. But Empires is a stake, a flag in the ground that we've now stuck there, that shows that have built an amazing product that we're going to use as a springboard into an amazing future. And having yourself on board and doing what you're doing, is only going to help us grow. And um, I implore everyone listening to the podcast, that join the Legion's Toolbox, sign up. It is free to do so, and continue to grow and thrive. Let's work together to build this community brick by brick, because as promised you from the CEO top down, we are working our butts off. Like I said, Opus of the Magi is very much already into production, um, of working on it, laying out, making sure the cards and the algorithms are set up properly. We'll have obviously more information as the year goes on, but we also have, after Gen Con, we're not slowing down any. We have 3 Siege series coming up, 2 more in Canada, 1 more in the United States to finish out the year. So another 3 Siege series with 8 new RTIs, regional tournament invites, handouts, going to be going to the top 8 finishers of each event, to go into to go with the 3 prior sets of 8 that have already been given out. So it's all gearing up towards not only next year having amazing product releases and some great announcements on the business side of things, but also pushing into the fact that we're going to be holding our first regional level event next year as well. So all of these great things are onwards and upwards as we keep moving along. But integral point that I'm trying to make with all this is that Julian and the work that he is doing and working with the community to continue to develop the Legion's Toolbox as a one-stop shop. I think that's incredible for our game growth, and it's only going to work as more products and more sets are released.
Absolutely. Thank you, Taylor, for your very flattering words. I mean, the best thing for all of us as players, as participants in this community, for everybody involved in this community at any level, is for this game to grow. For the game that we all love and play to reach a wider audience, so that we can see the game evolve, and we get to enjoy it for many years to come. I am very, very thankful for the opportunity to work so closely with the studio to build this platform for the community. And as you say in your emails, Taylor, the future is definitely bright.
Future is bright, and I think it's just something we have to keep looking forward to while also keeping an eye on what's happening right now, right? If you look too far into the future, you're going to lose sight of the present. If you look too far in the past, you're not going to be able to see what's happening right in front of you.
Wise words.
Man, it's almost like Matt, young for his age, but was able to memorize a small part of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So,
Hey, he just laid down some knowledge, okay?
yeah. So, is there any questions or anything that you have for us, Julian?
I don't think so. It's been amazing to get to spend this time with you, and I encourage everyone to join the Discord server because you actually get to hang out with the creator of the game sometimes, and it's amazing. And sometimes you can just be playing a random game, and Taylor shows up, and Matt shows up, and people show up, and it becomes a very, very educational time for everybody involved. So, and I mean, sometimes a little spoilers drop there too. So if you want to get involved with this community, I definitely encourage you to join the official Discord server as well, because we have a very, very good time there, and it's extremely informative.
It's true. We do a lot of spontaneous late night or after I jump in to see how everyone's doing, playing some games. I know the Legions League has been doing really, really well. Our online tournaments through webcam. We keep track of all of the points, wins, and losses, and we update the results. Almost daily or every other day, so you can see where you are on the leaderboard. And we're in the middle of our season 3 of it, so people have already received prizings from season 1 and season 2 of the Legions League. And so the fact that we're continuing to do the Legions League and it continues to grow with the onset of a couple more American players jumping on board, some people from out west in Canada, and a couple from Eastern Canada, and now with the Kingston community growing. So not only are we playing in person, but we're playing through Discord. So oftentimes myself or some of our judges jump in to make sure not only we answer judge calls, but sometimes just spontaneous pop-ins to see how everything's going and how everything's doing. And like Julian said, oftentimes it turns into a nice discussion after the games are done, and we go on for a couple hours laughing and joking, and it's like, I would say, like, it's almost like a round table, but it's mostly just like a hangout, and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff's awesome. I know Julian made a joke the one night when it was just two him and someone else playing, and it ended up, by the end of the night, it ended up being like 13 or 14 of us in the server just talking, and he made a joke about it being like Legion's Con, right? So I think that's it just goes to show that, like what we talked about on the last podcast with Cody, that people throw around the word community a lot, but
Absolutely.
I think it's more of a family, to be completely honest. I think that that's what we're building here. It's that village, right, that we're talking about. It takes a village to raise a family.
Absolutely.
And I think it's more than a community, because we're all, even though we come from different walks of life and from different parts of the world, um, we're all united by one thing. And from that one thing, we have spawned great friendships. Some of my closest friends I met in a card shop 17 years ago, and they're still my closest friends now. So the fact is that I'm building these great relationships with everybody, um, all over again, or new people coming in, um, because you all are amazing. Because I can't say it enough how amazing our I was gonna say our community, but our family is, because you guys are all partaking in a common thing that I created. And talk about the most flattering thing is the fact that this is a vision I had 11 years ago, and it's something that I've been building for my entire adult life thus far. And I've cashed in a lot, sacrificed a lot, sacrificed house, you know, family, different things that people look to do in their lifetime. I did it all for a dream. and the fact that our family has grown because of they saw the work that I put in, and they became a fan of the process, and a fan or a friend of of the hard work, and can appreciate it. I can't stress how much that means, because I wouldn't be able to do what I love to do and be able to live my dream without all of you. So it's an incredible honor.
That's
It's an
those are amazing words. And if you're holding a drink right now, here's to getting to do what you love to do and living your dream.
cheers to that. Like honestly though, it's like I think it's an honor on my end to be able to, run a podcast with a creator of a card game. Like that's so unheard of. If I told myself 2 years ago that I'd be doing this, I would not believe myself at all. Like this is fantastic.
Things
I
happen
know.
so fast that it's like upside down. Like if you had asked me 3 months ago if I was going to be in a podcast with the creator of the game, describing the website that I created for the game that I had no idea about back then, I would have said definitely not.
Exactly.
But here we are.
Yeah, and that's, I think uh, Rye Guy McFly, who's in our community Discord, and I know our local players know him just as Ryan. I think he said it best. It would be a year ago now, actually, when Frontiers released. He said to me, because I even said, I'm like, all right, Empire's the next focus, and he just said, "Whoa, Taylor, slow down for a second, soak this in, man. You just released a third set in the same calendar year that you launched the game. Take a moment to realize what mountain you just climbed. Because most indie TCGs don't even last 6 months, let alone a year.
The
Most indie
problem,
TCGs produce one, maybe two sets, and that's it. The fact that we put out three plus starter deck products all in our first year, and we have no signs of slowing down. He said to me, he says, just take a moment. He says, I know it's not going to be long because you got to work your butt off, but just soak it in for a little bit because you climbed a mountain. And my response to him was, that was just a small mountain, my friend. We summited
that's
one,
exactly what
and
I was
we're on
going
to
to
the next
say.
one.
You're the kind of guy that climbs a mountain and then immediately when you get to the top you look at the next tallest one and you go like, okay, let's go there now.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's
Maybe that's what it takes to create a successful card game.
exactly. You can never stop for too much, It's sometimes if you stop too much, then everything catches up to you.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm
And
sure if Taylor stopped now for 2 months, it'd be almost impossible to pick up again. This is one of those things that now it's become a sprint, and it seems like he's actually enjoying it a lot, even though it's a lot of hard work on top of his other job. But I mean, he's like Taylor here seems like he's got no intention of stopping, and nothing can slow him down.
no, it's like I said before, and I've said it I think inside the Creator Mind videos as well. Like sometimes you just got to put the hard hat on and push forward, right? Because you know you if you make excuses, that's exactly what they are. They're an excuse, right? Like um, I don't you don't live in fear, right? If you think you're going to succeed, then you'll succeed.
Yeah,
And
it's
success looks different to a lot of people. They might look at us and be like, "Oh yeah, you're in the middle of your year two, and you have technically 5 products out, and well, why haven't you reached critical mass yet?" But to me, I look at it as like it's not a matter of necessarily reaching critical mass, because if we exploded in our first year, would we be able to keep up? Would I have been able to
You would be
produce
dealing with
the quality?
completely different problems,
Yeah, would I
and
be
they
able to
would have
produce?
no, they would have definitely caused a detriment to the quality of the product you can put out.
Exactly, whether it's the card quality, whether it's the playability, the balance of the game. Like, sometimes there's a reason why that old adage is that the slow and steady win the race, right? Would we like to continue to see growth? For sure, and we are growing. Now, would we like to see bigger volumes of growth? Sure, and we'll get there. Um, but having that viewpoint that it needs to be instant, it needs to be overnight success. To me, that's not the definition of success. So the way I look at it is it sometimes is a slow grind. Like I said, climbing a mountain. If there was an elevator, yeah, everyone would take it. But sometimes you got to take the stairs.
Some truth bombs were dropped during this podcast right now. We got deep at a moment, and like some people came here for like some like card stuff, and they ended up getting some real life lessons here.
Exactly. I mean, I think there's always a moral to a story, right? I think sometimes
To every good story, yeah.
exactly. I think there's always a moral to every good story, and you have to sometimes decipher what that is, whether it's told to you or not. But with that, I think that's probably a good place to end it.
I think so
I
too, unless
agree.
Julian has anything to add.
I am perfectly content with the breadth of subjects that we have covered tonight.
Awesome. And I know that the community has been chomping at the bit. They've wanted the Legion's Lounge back for a while. Everyone really indulged in the one we did with Cody this past Monday. And I'm sure they're going to get a wealth of knowledge from Julian and the direction in which not only we are going, but you're going, and we're on the trajectory we're doing this together. I think that they're going to be over the moon and it's excited about what lies ahead for the Toolbox and Legions as a whole.
Thank you
Exactly.
very much. Thank you
No,
very much for
thank
having
you.
me. Thank you for your time. Thanks for your time, everybody listening and watching. Because this apparently is going to run for a while. But it's been absolutely amazing being here. Let's do it again sometime.
Oh,
For sure,
100%.
we'll definitely have you back on, and maybe we'll have you back on when some of those amazing pipeline updates come on, and when you can talk about those in detail about maybe where the platform goes from there. So
Oh, you know it. We're gonna have those done soon, and by the next time we're having one of these, the platform is gonna look entirely different, and we're gonna be talking about an entirely different pipeline that is mostly gonna be defined by your suggestions, and I'm talking to the community. So get on the website, get on that form, and let us know what you want from this site, and we'll add it to the pipeline, and we'll make it happen.
exactly. So I urge everyone still listening this far to the podcast. We were told that they like the longer format of the podcast, so that's what we offered you again this time around. So if you watched all the way to the end here, please continue to help us grow the community. Jump on the Legion's Toolbox. It takes you no time. It is free to sign up. Get a profile going on there and help Julian and help us build this thing bigger. He can see all the analytics. He can see who's on there. And I think it's great that we get the feedback necessary to continue to grow forward. We as a company of Future Shoes have always listened to feedback and tried to incorporate it into our products and our launches. And Julian, I'm sure we'll be doing the exact same with the Legion's Toolbox. So make sure you get on there. Like I said, it's free to sign up. www.legionstoolbox.com. Sign up, join the community, help us grow this thriving game. And what else? What else can we say, Matt, other than let's keep
Honestly,
building it. Let's
let's
keep
keep
building
building
this
the
brick by
game,
brick.
and thank you for being here. Both Taylor, Julian, most importantly, listeners, right? This podcast is just a couple guys talking without you guys, and it's very important that we not only point out people that deserve shout outs throughout the podcast, but also you listening, right? You listening helps everything keep going full circle. So I think it's
Well, Matt couldn't said it better. Thank you, Julian, for being on with us. I'm sure we'll be bringing you back in due time, sir.
Thank you guys. It's been a pleasure.
it has. And with that, I hope you have a great day, everyone.
And we'll see you next time in the
I'll
lounge.
see you next time in the lounge.